Hiya, and welcome to Dialogues Reinventing Our Purpose. Um, I'm motivated to do this because I have a concern, an anxiety, a kind of almost existential crisis about the state of affairs in the world and the future prospects of my children and grandchildren. Um, this is June 2025, and it seems that we are on the verge of some kind of collapse, economic, social, cultural disintegration, where alternative facts, the rise of the far right populism based upon always a division of one group against another group, outsiders, refugees, migrants, um, gays, disabled, whatever it is. There's always a us and them. The other is to blame for whatever's going on. Scapegoating of individuals, groups, whole cultures, types, identities, dispositions, and mostly kind of articulated in the form of loss, some kind of sense of loss and reclamation of uh, an old way of being, or a reversion to something considered by the far right as the natural order. I want to try and get away from this, and I started off thinking this was a very personal perspective, but I spoke to lots and lots of people about it, and I've been quite surprised by how many people share a concern with the purpose of this series of vlogs. Though, to a person, everyone's got their own different perspective. So, this is why I wanted to create a series of dialogues, but dialogues which aim to reinvent purpose. That is, purpose for people, for human beings, for Homo sapiens sapiens. I want to see a future in which I feel, though I won't be around to see it, that my grandchildren and children and maybe great grandchildren in due course can thrive. And I don't mean thrive financially, I mean thrive in terms of their well being, their sense of purpose, their volition, things that excite and interest them. But I'm thinking that rather than the old utilitarian idea of the maximization of the most possible happiness for the most people, or notions of well-being, or other quite difficult to pin down terms that act as the benchmark of having made some progress. I'm going to, for the time being, but all of this is provisional because the whole point is to have a discussion about it, discussion with peers and colleagues and friends and family, and with yourselves, right? So I want to invite you on this journey, but my measure for the time being is not well-being or happiness, but freedom and freedom from want. So freedom to do, freedom to be, and freedom from are my kind of like go-to concepts of what it's all about and how we can measure concretely, in some cases, our progress towards these freedoms. Now, key point for me is this idea of contingency. And I mean that in its deepest and broadest sense, that all knowledge, as far as I can discern, and having looked at this for many, many, many years now, is contingent. There's no absolute truth. There's no big T out there. So even this, what I'm saying now, is subject to amendment and revision. And for some people, this is a real problem because it kind of like threatens a belief in the supernatural or in the Almighty, which almost by definition are absolutes. But we'll see. I've called it Dialogues Reinventing Purpose. And then I inserted our purpose. So Dialogues Reinventing Our Purpose. The acronym is DROP, drop in, drop out. Drop along. You know, just using words and making up memes of some sort. The point is to see if, instead of looking at ways that separate us out from each other, create divisions, antagonisms, we can start to reconstruct a world based on kindness. That's the kind of reinvention of purpose that I'm looking to try and achieve over the next few years or so. And I want you to join me on that journey, to help if you can, to critique if you feel so moved to do, but to do it in a spirit of wanting to see the very best for our children.